Have you ever noticed that the louder you speak, the less they listen? That the more you explain, the more invisible you become? It's as if the world punishes the ones who try too hard to be understood and rewards those who simply watch. Wait. There's a strange kind of power that doesn't shout, doesn't argue, doesn't beg for attention. It's the power of stillness, the force of silence. You feel it when someone walks into a room and says nothing, but somehow everyone looks, not because of what they wear, not because of what they say, but because of something else. Something you can't name. You've probably felt it. That discomfort in the presence of someone who doesn't need to prove anything. The anxiety that grows when someone refuses to react. That eerie, almost threatening calm. And here's the truth. No one tells you. The real game isn't played by those who scream the loudest. It's played by those who know when to disappear, when to wait, when to hold the silence so long it becomes unbearable. Because in a world addicted to noise, he who masters silence becomes a threat, not by force, not by fear, but by presence. The most dangerous presence is the one you can't explain but can't ignore. So ask yourself, what if the very thing you've been running from, is the quiet power you were born to hold? There's something inside you that burns every time you're misunderstood. A voice that whispers, say something, defend yourself. Don't let them think they're right. So you do. You write the long message. You rehearse the perfect comeback. You explain, justify, clarify again and again, but it never works, does it? Because the more you try to be understood, the more they distort your silence. The more you try to prove your worth, the more invisible you become. You're not being heard, you're being dissected, and still you keep reacting. We were trained to believe that silence means weakness, that retreat means defeat. So we live on the edge of our nerves, waiting to explode, reacting to criticism, flaring up at disrespect, desperate to fix every false impression others have of us. But here's the problem. Reaction is control-handed. Every time you jump to explain, you're admitting guilt. Every time you argue to be seen, you shrink. You think you're defending yourself. But what you're really doing is proving that you need permission to exist. You give away your power in exchange for validation that never comes. Ask yourself honestly, how much energy have you wasted trying to fix what others think of you? How many nights have you stayed awake writing imaginary dialogues in your head? How many times have you handed your piece over to people who never deserved it? This is the trap. They provoke, and you perform. They lie, and you clarify. They pull your strings, and you call. It communication, you become addicted to the need to respond. But the cost is brutal. Your self-respect, your center, your voice, not the voice that screams, but the one that doesn't need to. The greatest control is not the ability to speak. It's the ability to remain intact, without saying a single word if what you've heard so far is making you uncomfortable, good. That means something inside you is waking up. And if this is resonating with the part of you that's tired of pretending, take a moment now. Pause. Subscribe to the channel. Not for content, but for what's behind it. Because this isn't just a video, it's a mirror. We're just getting started. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life. You will call it fate." You think you're choosing your reactions. You think you're defending yourself? But most of the time, you're simply obeying something hidden. A wound you haven't faced, a fear you haven't named, shadow you've never dared to look at. This need to explain yourself, to please to be understood, it doesn't come from your power. It comes from your wound. And your wound knows exactly how to speak. It speaks through your defensiveness. It speaks through your desperation to be liked. It speaks through your silence, but not the kind that empowers. It's the kind that pleads. Jung wasn't talking about external enemies. He was pointing to the ones inside. The voices inherited from shame, childhood, rejection, and the patterns we keep repeating. Not because they serve us, but because they feel familiar. You can't master what you refuse to see. And until you confront the part of you that needs to be heard, you'll never discover the part of you that doesn't. The self that is whole. The self that is silent. Self that is untouchable. There is a kind of strength that doesn't enter the room looking for space. It's simply a Zan suddenly. Everyone else adjusts. Not because of force, not because of status, but because of something far more unsettling. Unreadable presence. You've met this kind of person before. They walk in and don't demand attention. They don't raise their voice. But something about them changes the temperature of the room. You feel it before you see it. You sense it before you understand it. They don't speak much. But when they do, everything else becomes background noise. This is the energy of someone who doesn't need to be seen because they already see everything. While the world rushes to perform, they remain still, not passive, not afraid, but observant. Strategic, centered. Because silence, Drew, silence is not the absence of sound. It's the presence of control. It is a field, gravitational pull, and the ones who master it reshape the environment without lifting a hand. There's a power in watching others reveal themselves. Let them speak too much. Let them justify, over-explain, overreact. And while they bleed out their secrets, you remain still, gathering data, reading patterns, recognizing their flaws, because when you don't rush to respond, you see everything. They expect you to flinch. They expect you to defend. But you don't. And in that refusal, something breaks. Not in you, in them. People are addicted to reaction. They need you to match their chaos so they can feel in control. But when you don't play, when you disrupt the rhythm they're counting, on you become untouchable and terrifying. You become the silence they don't know how to fill, because in that silence, they see themselves reflected. Every insecurity, every lie, every motive. You become the mirror that doesn't distort, just reveals, and most people can't handle their own reflection. There is a reason predators don't roar before they strike. A reason the deadliest storms arrive in absolute stillness. It's not a lack of power, it's the control of it. The world has conditioned you to believe that power must be loud. You must explain, prove, defend, react. But real power is economical. It doesn't waste motion. It doesn't scream. It moves when it decides to. And only then, in conversations, the most powerful person isn't the one speaking the most. It's the one whose silence you can't ignore. The one who leaves space so heavy it makes the other person nervous. Not because they're doing something, but because they're not. And in that not doing, they own the room. There's an old saying, never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. Well, but the real master doesn't just wait for mistakes. They create the atmosphere where mistakes become inevitable, and that doesn't require force. It requires presence, awareness, stillness. You may think silence is doing nothing, but in the hands of the right person, silence is an orchestration. You're not confronting, you're composing. You're letting the environment speak louder than any words ever could. This is the energy of the one who is always underestimated, the one who fades into the background, the quiet one, till they're not. Until without warning they say the one thing that ends the conversation, the one move that collapses the entire game. Because while everyone else was shouting, they were thinking. And the most dangerous person in the room is never the loudest. It's the one who already knows how the game ends. So the next time you feel that urge to react, to explain, to be understood, pause. Ask yourself, what am I about to give away? Whose game am I playing? Because the moment you stop performing, the moment you stop bleeding for an audience that only wants to watch you becomes something else. Not a victim, not a hero, but something far more dangerous. An observer. And from that vantage point, you see clearly. Not everything deserves your response. Not every battle is worth your sword, and sometimes the deadliest move is none at all. Now be honest. With yourself? Why do you react so quickly? Why do you explain so much? Why do you hand over your peace to people who never earned it? Is it really about truth, or about your need to be accepted? How much of your life is shaped not by what you want, but by what you're afraid to lose? You keep saying you're tired. Tired of being misunderstood. Tired of giving and not being seen. Tired of feeling like your voice doesn't matter. But what if you're not tired from being unheard? What if you're tired from constantly trying to prove that you exist? Pause. Let that sink in. How many of your reactions are just your fear disguised as strength? How often have you mistaken urgency for clarity? And what if the person you've been trying to convince has already decided who you are? What would happen if you just stopped? It's not as surrender, but as evolution. Would the world collapse? Would you disappear? Or would you finally see who remains? When you're no longer busy chasing your own reflection, what if the most powerful thing you could do is to disappear from the argument? Not out of weakness, but out of strategy.
Out of self-respect.
Out of clarity. There is a kind of silence that doesn't beg, doesn't plead, doesn't explain. It simply removes itself. You don't need to storm out. You don't need to shout. You just don't give them access anymore. No closure, no final word. Just distance. And in that distance, something shifts. You start to see clearly the people who only valued you when you broke yourself to be understood. The patterns that kept you looping through the same emotional prisons. The conversations that never fed you, only drained you. And when you stop feeding those patterns with your reaction, they begin to starve. This isn't passive, it's surgical. It's the discipline of letting others feel the weight of your silence, the cold of your absence, the boundary of your no. You begin to choose your energy like currency, no longer handing it out for approval, but investing it where it returns as peace. Carl Jung called this the process of individuation, becoming who you are beneath all the noise, the masks, the need to be liked. And once you taste the strength of that solitude, you stop negotiating your worth with people who can't even recognize it. You don't have to punish anyone. You don't even need to explain. You just need to disappear from the space where your power was being bled. Not to escape, but to rebuild. To return as something whole, quiet, clear, and utterly untouchable. In the end, what are you really afraid of? That they won't understand you? That they'll twist your silence into guilt? That you'll vanish? And no one will come looking? Good. Let them misunderstand. Let them write stories in their minds. Let them talk to your absence like it's still listening. Because you're not here to be decoded. You're here to be whole. And wholeness requires solitude. It's not the kind that breaks you, the kind that reveals you. It's easy to scream, to react. It's easy to bleed on every stage that invites your pain, but to sit in silence. To watch the chaos pass through you without swallowing you. That's sacred. That's where power lives. There is a cost to becoming this version of you. You will be called cold, distant, detached. But the truth is, you're not detached from others. You're detached from the need to be accepted by them.